Welcome to the July 21st, 2026 meeting of the South Burlington Development Review Board. My name is Quinn Mann. I'm the chair of the board, and I would like to also introduce my fellow board members. We have Charlie Johnston, Jody Lesko, Frank Kochman, Mark Baer, and Ted Lenski. To the right of me, we have our staff, Marla Keene and Alex Levin. And just a quick bit of housekeeping. If you're attending tonight's meeting, we do ask that you sign in to record your attendance. If you're in person, there's a sign-in sheet in the back of the room. If you're attending online, you can type your name and email into the chat box or email your contact information to Marla Keene at mkeene@southburlingtonvt.gov. I will also note if you're attending tonight and you're looking to make public comments on any of the specific agenda items, the way we do public comment is we provide an opportunity for public comment at the end of each individual item. So it's associated with each item. So that opportunity will be given. And with that, we will begin with the agenda. Agenda item number 1, emergency evacuation procedures. If you're in the room today, there's a door in the right and the left side of the back room, and you can leave those doors, turn right or left, and you will find an exit. Agenda item number 2 is additions, deletions, or changes in order of agenda items. Do we have any? I'm hearing none. Agenda item number 3 is announcements. Any announcements from staff or the board? Nope. And agenda item number 4 is comments and questions from the public not related to the agenda. Any of those this evening? No. Okay, that brings us to our first application that is on the agenda, number 5. This is site plan application PZ Site 2026-19. Of the City of South Burlington to amend a previously approved plan for a 68-acre multi-use recreation park and athletic facility. The amendment consists of converting an existing field to turf, expanding an existing parking lot, and constructing a 3,000 square foot storage and maintenance building. The project is at 600 Swift Street. And with that, I will ask who is here for the applicant.
Hi, everybody. I'm Silken Kirshner. I am the project manager of transportation and open spaces with the City of South Burlington. Nice to see you all again.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm Greg Dixon, the civil engineer from Krebs and Lansing Consulting Engineers.
Great. And do you guys have anyone online this evening, or is it just you? Just you. Great. And so with that, what we have for you all tonight is the staff report and the form of a draft decision. There was just a few items that we are looking to discuss. But before we get to those, just want to provide the opportunity for you to provide a quick overview, talk through what the proposal is.
Yeah, an overview of the, general overview of the project is primarily focused on the installation of a new field, which is the synthetic turf, and some other components associated with that, as well as the rest of the park, is expanding the existing gravel lot that is currently there to be a full-fledged parking lot, a little bit of rotating the fields that will be adjacent to the new turf field, removing the half circle pull up that just functionally nobody really uses, and it's difficulty for DPW crews to plow, and then the addition of a storage building on the north side of the Cairns Arena that would be used for DPW and Rec and Park programming.
Okay, great. Anything else on your end covers it?
No, just the addition of all the other infrastructure to support that programming, stormwater, and mostly.
Okay, excellent. And before we jump into the staff comments board, or is there any initial comments just to make sure we have the lay of the land? Good? Okay, great. So we're going to start with comment number 1, which is on page 13 of the draft decision that was included in the packet. And this comment is regarding the landscaped islands that are in the parking lot. So 2 parts here. One is a request to add curbing around the perimeter of the parking area to protect the vegetation that's proposed. And also, we're looking at an increase of the interior parking islands to meet the 10% standard. And we can bring up that site plan to kind of chat through how that's being calculated. But if you want to start with the first item there about adding the curbing.
So yeah, I worked with Alex, and I believe at least we added curbing around the islands in the middle themselves and around the island to the south, where it connects to the other fields. The way I'm trying to capture stormwater is kind of from the southern edge of the parking lot. It'll flow north and then be collected sort of closer to the field and go either east or west to the stormwater basins. So we'd prefer not to put a curb on the north side of the parking lot, which I don't know if we discussed, but that was the intent. We do have a calculation that was on C1 1.05, which kind of outlines the calculations that I used. It shows the green shaped areas as the areas used for the calculation, and then the overall green shape around the whole parking lot is sort of how I calculated the total parking lot space. I thought it meant
Can
that.
I just interrupt to focus on the first part first?
Yeah.
Because you're kind of going into the second part of the
Okay.
staff
Yeah,
comment.
yeah. So the north side of the parking lot not having curbing. is
Right.
the current
So going
proposal.
back to the standard quickly, the standard is all interior perimeter parking shall be protected by curbing unless specifically designed as a collection and treatment area for stormwater. And then the specific standard in 1304B5C, B5C, sections of drop curve no greater than 5 feet in length be installed to allow stormwater to flow off the paved parking lot. So at the DRB's discretion, curbless parking areas and planting islands may be allowed where they're specifically designed for stormwater management. Ends and corners of some areas, such areas must be protected with curving to prevent cars from driving over or parking on planted areas. So if I go back to the plan, it sounds like it's only the north side. It appears that there's no curbing on the south side either. Is that correct? Currently?
There currently, yes, around the ADA parking spaces and that sort of entrance in the middle, there is curbing, and on the island to the east, there is curbing, but there was no curbing sort of on that long stretch. I guess we could put it there. There's no real reason not to. It was more just to avoid the cost of adding that much curbing, but we can do that. And then on the east and west sides, along kind of the driveways, I was hoping to avoid curbing that, but we are putting in a wooden fence that might act very similar to protecting the trees and vegetated space from cars driving on them.
So for the areas where you're not proposing curbing right now, is it for the purpose of managing the stormwater? Is that the position or
the northern
the
side
northern?
is the southern side. It just didn't really make a ton of sense, but we can do it. It makes piling snow a lot easier if they're not there, obviously.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like it adds cost and some operations and maintenance increases with the snow situation. Okay, I was going to ask the question about the snow because I saw that the snow storage is there. Okay.
So the boards, I think the snow storage and the cost is a factor in every project, right? Yeah. And the LDR specifically spell out allowing no curbing when it's necessary for stormwater as a standard. I wouldn't interpret the LDR to require curbing along the east and west because it specifies parking areas and these are drive aisles.
Yeah.
On the southern parking lots, the parking spaces, how will water shed from those spaces if you put curbing? Right now, I can see on the northern part of those spaces, they're going to shed all the way across the parking lot. But then if you put curbing, how will they shed to the south?
So right now, the southern line of the parking is the high point. So that whole thing is the high point of the parking lot, and water sheds sheet flow across the parking lot to the north.
Okay. So
curbing
you don't need it for stormwater management to the north.
No, curbing could exist there. The purpose was for cost and snow storage.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing is curbing on the southern part will not interfere with the stormwater management. but the curbing, having no curbing to the north will facilitate the stormwater proposed flow.
Correct.
Do we have any concerns with that? Does that feel compelling? Okay, so I think based on what's being presented here, it seems like the board would be comfortable with that, not having curbing on the north side, but seeing the curbing on the southern part.
So if we want to move to this, if you're ready to move to the second part of
Yeah.
the comment,
Is it worth saying, is that something that would be able to be in the conditions as far as is specific enough to have it in
Yeah.
a condition? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, and then
Oops, sorry.
moving to
so the second
the
part of the comment is about, gone past it. The second part of the comment is the interior parking islands to meet the 10%. And Alex's observation here is that the way it was calculated is not consistent with how we calculate interior parking lot islands. Do you want to go into a little more detail, Alex?
Yes, and it in a way it does contradict what is before we conditioned what is curbed, but typically we consider the interior areas surrounded by parking lots to be islands. So those two areas, sort of in the northeast and southwest, we didn't really consider those to be parking islands, but did recognize that the area in the southeast is a parking island.
I would say our intent with those northeast and southwest islands were that those trees will still be providing shade to the same parking lot. So it would really just be a matter of reconfiguring, making where those northeast and southwestern quote unquote islands are now more rectangular and redistributing the islands throughout the parking lot, which we thought would just kind of disrupt the flow of traffic through here.
Yeah,
I
so
guess
that's actually the part of the purpose of the standard is to break up large swaths of pavement.
Yeah, and just Alex explained it, but that is how we see, the parking lot island should really function kind of as an island or like an island on three sides, if you will. So yeah, the point is that it would kind of break up and project into the parking area. So that's what we would be looking for in a redesign.
Would you be open to allowing us to reconfigure these islands to the standard as a condition of approval, or would this be a stay to a different hearing?
Yeah, so, and staff can weigh in on this too, but typically conditions have to be specific enough that we could explain it and someone else could like read that and reflect that onto a site plan and, come up with the same outcome. So if we don't have the specifics of where these islands would be going right now, I think that would be difficult to do. But I would also appreciate staff's thoughts
Wait a
on
minute.
that.
This is just sketch plan we're talking about.
No, this one's site plan. The next two are sketch.
Okay.
Yeah, I think staff's intention, staff's hope, and possibly we could have communicated this more clearly, was that reading these comments that you would come with a proposal to meet the 10%. So whether it's, oh, these 3 parking spaces are going to be turned into an island and that affects the denominator by so much and the numerator by so much, and then we get 10%. If you're not prepared with those calculations, it would probably be tough to include a condition, as Quinn alluded to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're far off, and it would just be sort of turning some parking spaces into islands to meet the 10%. I don't think it's a huge change.
Yeah, we would just need the specifics of where those islands are going to be proposed and the area and that actual calculation as well.
Just asking if the board was okay with making this a condition. I'm sure staff would be able to make sure that calculation was facilitated.
Yeah, I will hear from other members of the board as well, but that's just, we don't have enough information to the extent that we would typically do this as a condition, again, just because that
It's totally fine to do this at a different hearing.
Yeah. Anyone else feel? Yep.
Was the calculation we saw above, was that something we're not in agreement with, or the one that was looked like they're
Right,
off by about,
because they included the islands on the
Okay.
northeast and the
Mhm.
right,
southwest.
so because it's like it's about 160 square feet
Mhm.
per parking spot. It's easy enough to say that one, and that one. But if we need to recalculate because we're not sure of all the square footages of that, then I would, defer to needing you to come back with an actual proposal.
It's totally
I
fine.
have the square footages in those areas, right? I just added it up. It's 1945 out of your 4670 you need. So what is that? What's the width of a parking space?
It's
Where the
9
area?
by 18.
9 by 18.
Yeah,
And
I think, I mean,
Identify 12 spaces you can remove right now.
Right,
and
but
then we
keep in
can
mind it
condition-
also comes out of the denominator, so they need less.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I,
Right.
yeah,
huh?
I think it's easier to
I
just
think
do
it'd
this
be
out of
easier to come back
Good
with a
intention.
I'm happy to.
We
I'm happy to be.
Yeah.
I'm happy to come back.
And are we? I believe you'll count the northeast corner as a
Yeah.
parking island. So
Yeah.
it's really just the larger area,
This one?
right? Because that'll be they conditioned to approve it as a curbless island.
No, I don't think we told them they could put. We put curbing along the southern edge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
This isn't
curving
an
that.
island.
Okay.
but what if if you squared that off, it would be an island.
It would be.
Yes, yeah, if you made it, more.
Yeah,
of the-
because parking islands have always been one of these things, a negotiating tactic. I didn't mean to say tactic. A negotiating point when you're sort of looking at, does it make sense to include that as part of the corner of a parking lot? And I do agree that the southwest is a little bit extensive.
Yeah, it's think about it. Is it just the boundary of the parking lot, or is it actually an island into the parking lot? And so those types
mean-
of lines, or
Yeah, we can definitely come
yeah.
back with the calculation, but I mean, on other projects, we have used areas like that because it's kind of like stating, well, I could also make a giant square, and
I think you should count yourself lucky that they're giving you the top right.
Okay. So I've been hearing from you guys that you're okay with coming back a proposal. We'll need the more details of that along with the calculation. And so we'll be continuing this, but we can move on to the next item.
Mhm.
Board, anything else before we do so? Or anything else from staff? Okay. All right, item number 2. This is about the replanting of the 10-inch crab apple requires revised site plans to show its new proposed location.
In the northwest corner of the turf field.
I thought I pointed that or stated it would just sort of be in the reclaimed area for the driveway, but I guess we can put it directly in a spot. I honestly don't even know if it can be moved, but I don't think we were counting it as part of
Okay.
the trees. I think the hope is that we can move it, but I don't think it should be tied into the decision because I'm a little worried that you'd be able to move it.
Okay, so the intention is to try to move that tree, but you're not banking on it, so it's not to be included in any landscaping calculation.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to move and maintain all those trees if possible, because they're existing and they're nice trees, but they're not included as part of like our tree calculation.
Okay.
Hopefully you could just sort of shift them into where the driveway used to be.
Greg, is this the 10-inch crabapple you're talking about?
Yeah.
Got it.
And then those other 2-inch trees, I'm not a tree person. I don't exactly know what they are, but I think they're put in relatively recently. Those two probably have higher chance of being able to move. Crab apples, I think the crab apples were put in originally, so that might be a pretty substantial root base that might not survive.
Okay. Anything else on that? Thanks for clarifying the proposal. All right, the next item is under stormwater management, and we are looking for a 25-year storm report, including cutout information on the wire slot on sheet C-1.01 before closing the hearing.
Yeah, I'm still working on those calculations. I didn't
Okay.
know that we need for the hearing. This project will be receiving a state stormwater permit. It doesn't need to meet the 25 per that state permit process, but we can make sure it meets it for the city process.
Greg, what are the chances that that's going to result in any components of the stormwater system being different in XY space?
I don't think it's going to change anything. I honestly think the way I've designed it right now, it'll probably meet the 100-year storm.
Okay, so that will be another item we'll need before her closing. And I believe that was everything. So anything else from you all before?
I think just one comment I'd like to
Yeah.
make on the landscaping plan was that Greg prepared a preliminary landscaping of just location, and then we did have city arborist Nick Gardy weigh in on the tree selection.
Yep.
I just wanted to note that for the record.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and that's noted, and it looks
Okay,
like he didn't have any comments, so that's great. Thank you.
Would the requirement to still get a licensed landscape architect be needed? I thought I saw that in the notes.
Yeah,
That is, yes, that's still a requirement for a landscaping plan.
yeah. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Before we turn to public comment board, anything else on your end as far as questions? All right. And with that, we'll open up the public comment on this one. Anyone in person or online?
Nope.
All right. And so we will, as we discussed, be continuing this application. Staff, when might that be, considering we know we have our August recess on the second half of August?
Yeah, that August hearing date is pretty full, though. Let me just double check.
Yeah, I assume. Yeah, so it might be pushed out a bit.
And also the reason I asked about if it would change the plan at all is because, you know, if they could get the trying to get a sense of when they could get the revised materials. So you have 4 substantive applications to review on that night and 1 quick one. The appeals are probably...
Bear with us while we think about scheduling for this.
So if everyone can promise to be quick, we think you can fit it on August 4th.
August 4th, okay. And that will be getting
but that
new
requires the
materials.
revised materials to come to us like in the next couple days. Does that sound doable?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So that I would entertain a motion to continue PZ Site 2026-019 to August 4th.
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain. All right, we'll see you back on August 4th.
Thank you all. See you on
Thank you.
August.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 6, and I'll invite whoever's going to be representing this application to move towards the front here. This is sketch plan application PZ Sketch 2026-6 of Negley and Chase Construction Company to construct a new 12,975 square foot building and a new 8,640 square foot building on an existing 20.2 acre undeveloped lot for group home use. The project is at 596 Meadowland Drive. Oh, I forgot to swear them in. Yeah, they were the only ones I needed to swear in, and I did not.
Oh, yeah. I guess you'll swear them in
I'll
for the
swear them in
continuing
next
meeting.
time. We'll do it retroactively. All that being said, we are just here for sketch for you guys tonight. And so I will not swear you in. And I see you have a couple folks here. Do you have anyone online participating tonight for your team? Okay. No. Great. So we'll start, if you could just all introduce yourselves. And when you do, just try to get into a mic just so it gets in there, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, I'm Sandy Hoffman, Commissioner for the Department for Children and Families.
I'm Dan Heil, Civil Engineer with BHB.
Sam Beal with Duncan Vishneski Architecture.
Sorry. Andrew Martin from Neckley and Chase Construction.
I appreciate it. And so this is the first time we're seeing you all for this project. So just want to have you start by giving us an intro before we dive into the staff comments.
Okay, I'll do that. So as I said, I'm the Commissioner for the Department for Children and Families, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the State of Vermont, the Agency of Human Services, DCF, and the Department of Building and General Services. So the Green Mountain Youth Center will be a secure youth treatment facility. The center fills a gap in Vermont's continuum of care, and it allows us to treat justice-involved kids between the ages of 12 and 18 closer to home and to family rather than relying on out-of-state placements. It will operate as a two-tiered model: crisis stabilization for pre-adjudicated youth and a residential treatment program for those who are post-adjudicated, run by trained clinical and security staff. The plan was designed with the surrounding professional and residential complexes in mind. The project includes necessary upgrades to the industrial park infrastructure, which will benefit the entire complex. So we appreciate the Planning and Zoning team and the Development Review Board for your time and care you bring to this process, and we're here to answer your questions and look forward to partnering with you in the city of South Burlington through this process.
Great. Anything else to add before the report?
Yeah, I'll give a quick overview of the site. Marla, if you don't mind pulling up C1.01, please. So this is the proposed site. It is located at 596 Meadowland Drive in South Burlington, Meadowland Lot 3. The parcel is approximately 20 acres in size. It's located within the Industrial and Open Space IO zoning district, also within the Airport Approach Corridor, Scenic View Protection, Habitat Block and Connector, and River Corridor overlay districts. Parcel is currently undeveloped except for existing stormwater detention pond located in the northwest corner of the parcel. Our ecologist went out site and delineated the wetlands this past spring. We delineated a Class 2 wetland on the western portion of the parcel. That is that hatched area over the stormwater pond that extends from the northern property line to the southern property line. That has a 50-foot buffer zone associated with it. Bisecting the eastern portion of the parcel is another Class 2 wetland with a 50-foot buffer zone. And then we also delineated a few pocketed Class 3 wetlands on the west side of the site.
On the west or the east?
Oh, I'm sorry, east. Yep, east side. Thanks, Frank. I guess if we switch over to sheet C2.01 now, that kind of gives a zoomed in view of the proposed development. The proposal will consist of two buildings. One is an administrative and educational building that's 12,975 square feet. That is located on the west side of the site. And the second building is a residential building with 14 beds. That is 8,640 square feet. That's located on the east side of the site. Buildings would be served by a new curb cut off Meadowland Drive. Parking would be located on the west side of the building. Parking setback from that building frontage there, and the proposed impervious area would be located outside of the wetlands and wetland buffer zones. Part of our proposal includes a waiver request as we submitted the sketch plan before you tonight under the 925-2026 LDRs, which excluded more than two principal buildings on a single larger lot. Since then, the more recent LDRs have been warned by the City Council, And it's our understanding that the new LDRs do allow for more than one principal building used by the same operator, which would be the scenario here. Either way, I think we're looking for feedback tonight on whether the board supports the waiver request for more than 2 principal buildings on a single lot in the event something happened with the recently warned LDRs and those regulations changed. Site will connect to municipal water and sewer along Meadowland Drive, and stormwater management would be located on the western portion of the site. We're conceptually showing 2 different stormwater management areas. The intent would be to construct those outside of the 50-foot wetland buffer zone, but due to the grades on site, we're also seeking feedback from the DRB on proposing that stormwater management outfall within the 50-foot buffer zone. And I think that's it for my overview.
Great, thank you. And I will just want to make the point to say we've said that this is a sketch review, and just for members of the public to know, so for this application type, this point in the process actually isn't required a review process. The applicant is opting in to do this to have the board look at the proposal when it's still in this conceptual phase to get feedback on some of the items as Dan just kind of mentioned. And then there's other items that have come up as well. So the goal tonight is to identify potential issues as they finalize their design and provide feedback on how to move forward.
On the fundamental, the first issue raised, I just have a question. I think it's sort of obvious, but I just want to be sure.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, given the size of the lot, that there's no lot coverage issue here, that 2 buildings, 4 buildings, whatever, it's well within the coverage limitation.
That's correct. Yep.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And with that, anything else from the board as far as questions from the applicant's overview? No? Okay, great. So we'll jump into the staff report. The first item pertains to the scale of the development considering the surrounding context, the development that's already around it. So the application presents that there's an 11-foot grade change on the property, and it looks at this level of review with the detail provided. The grade change in the building heights are not apparent from the materials, so we wanted to ask that you explain the grading of the site and the proposed structures in relation to the street.
Absolutely. So we pull up sheet C201 again. The proposed new entrance drive off Meadowland Drive is at approximately a 344 elevation. The intent would be to slope down into the parking area. That gravel wetland in between the parking and the wetland buffer over there on the west side of the site is at 338 elevation approximately. If you go over to the wetland buffer to the east of the residential building, we're at a 349. So approximately, it varies a little bit, but that's where we're coming up with the 11-foot grade difference, and that's across the developable portion of the lot. So to make the site work, we are proposing to try to balance it as much as we can, and that would include fill material on the western portion of the site by the proposed parking area, and there may be a little bit of cut as you head up to the eastern portion of the site there. So while we're still working with the preliminary grades, the intent would be to fill kind of in the parking area, step up to the administrative building there, and then as you head further east across the site, across the courtyard, the building would step, and then conceptually, we're looking at the residential building being about 3 to 4 feet higher than the administrative building there to try to make up that grade difference across the site.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Yep.
Maybe I didn't phrase it quite clearly enough in the staff report, but you said one of the buildings is 2 stories. I wasn't able to discern which of the buildings is 2 stories.
They're all single story.
Okay. That's okay.
Okay, all single story. Thank you for the explanation. Board, is there any feedback, questions on that specifically or in the general transition contrast scale of this criteria? Good. Okay, yeah. Mark, any thoughts? Nothing? Okay. Very good. So we'll move on to item number 2. So this is under the pedestrian orientation area of the regulations. And so staff outlines in the report that there's some ambiguity in the permit history, but they are interpreting that the 1991 and 94 minutes of the original subdivision require the pedestrian easement, but defer requirements for construction of a path to reflect the board's ongoing practice of only requiring improvements at the time that the lot is developed. And so we note that in your proposal, the proposal is to relocate the existing pedestrian easement from its current location along Meadowland Drive, with the easement ending at the northeast corner of the lot instead of the southeast. And so here we want to provide the reminder that the history of the easement is that the plan for it is recreation and not transportation. So given that context, the recommendation that we would provide at this point is to revise the proposal for relocation of the pedestrian easement to 1, begin at the end at the approximate same points as today and enhance connectivity to the existing offsite trails and connections, and 2, be located away from Meadowland Drive as much as possible, again, because it's a recreation focus as opposed to that transportation, and to consist of an improved path compliant with the requirements of trails, which allows for an unpaved trail of about 10 feet. So I know that was a lot, but I think you all saw this comment before coming this evening, so would like your thoughts on that recommendation.
Yep. So if we go back to sheet C1.01, you can see the existing easement just east of the existing stormwater management pond, cutting through that wetland boundary there, and then it extends to the southern property line and follows that southern property line over and connects to the eastern property. The proposal that we were showing in sketch included relocating that easement up closer to Meadowland Drive. I think the intent there is to minimize the impacts to the wetlands. As you can see, that existing easement now is cutting through the Class 2 wetlands, both on the east side of the site and that wetland complex bisecting or it's cutting through the wetland on the west side of the site and the wetland complex bisecting that eastern portion. So in reading through the regulations, it does talk about the unpaved 10-foot trail going through wetland buffer. I didn't see anything specific to wetlands themselves. And I think we would be seeking to minimize those impacts to the wetlands. We certainly could revise that easement there to extend down to the southern portion of the parcel. But if you look at the plan before you now, that narrowest portion of the Class 2 wetland on the eastern portion of the site is up closer to Meadowland Drive. I think we could shift that easement a little bit further south, but the intent would be to try to cross that wetland at its narrowest point.
So the staff comment here is whatever you propose, the recommendation is to connect the same endpoints.
Yeah.
And right now you're not connecting the same endpoints.
I think we can connect the same endpoints. Yeah. We would like to keep it closer to Meadowland Drive though, where we're bisecting.
So would you be able to drop it down as soon as you get past the wetland immediately east of the development area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, moving forward, maintaining the access points, and I think we're supportive of trying to minimize the impacts to the wetland, and reconfiguring it as far as that goes. That makes sense.
I have a
Any
question.
other questions from the board?
I'm just thinking if there's a concern at all about security or safety for having a recreation path on a treatment site.
I don't think so.
Okay.
What you see in the purple dot there is
Yep.
a fence. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, thanks.
And Andrew, if you'd
There's-
like to have your
yeah.
own mic, you can stand up at
There
the
you
podium.
go.
Much easier. Thank you.
Yeah, when you get to it, there's a push button and if you click that, it should turn bright green.
It's green.
Good.
Okay. So there is a security fence at the end of the facility where the outside basketball court is. And then there is a loop that's running around to the transport intake side of the residential portion of the project. And I think we're just trying to minimize the visual aspect of interface with the public and the youth that's in the facility. So I think that's just a consideration that we were trying to impart. I think, the purpose of this is trying to keep the connectivity in the path in which we understand that. Just trying to minimize that sort of distraction around the southern part of the property.
Thank you for that. Okay, moving on to that, board, anything else before item number 3? So this item is regarding the solar gain potential of the building, which is the ability of the proposed structure to have sun in the windows. And so just asking for you to speak to the degree that you considered solar gain with the layout of the property.
Dan's a civil engineer, and he said the architect had to answer this one. Can you bring up the landscape plan that shows the roof? Yeah, thank you. So the western building is the administrative wing, and that is mostly a flat membrane roof, which will be suitable for extensive solar. There'll be a limited amount of mechanical equipment up there. And so that whole roof is available for solar.
Oh, so sorry. This is not about being solar ready.
Okay.
I have the same
jumped on the
confusion.
wrong question.
Yeah. So this will be about how the building is positioned to allow for solar to come into the building. So it,
Passive warming,
yeah.
right?
Yes.
Less strain on the heating system in winter.
Yep. So so in that regards, if you focus on the eastern building, which is the residential wing that is oriented north-south, we did that strategically to allow for the bedrooms, which face east for good morning light, and then the living spaces face west towards the courtyard and have good afternoon light, which is when most of those spaces will be used more actively. And so that was the reason for the orientation, was primarily that felicitous sort of solar activation of the day, rather than focusing on passive solar heat gain, which would tell you a bar building facing south. So we don't necessarily have the buildings optimized for passive solar heat gain, but this is a high performance shell that shouldn't need that passive solar heat gain to function properly.
Great. And the requirement here is to the extent possible other considerations. So appreciate that.
Okay, thanks.
Board, anything else? Okay. Moving on to item 4. This is under the site amenity requirement. Your proposal includes the proposal for a courtyard. And so there is one of the requirements for that type of site amenity is for every 500 square foot of courtyard, there's a minimum number of seats. And so based on the current proposal, that would be about 20 seats. And your proposal is identifying 10 seats currently.
Not exactly. So here, this is more a question for the board.
Yeah.
If they go with the civic space type, the letter of the regulations is to provide 1 seat for every 500 square feet, which is 20 seats. And so it's sort of a question to the applicant of like, is 20 seats a thing that makes sense for this use? And if not, inviting the board to indicate that they might allow modification of that standard if it's just a silly number for your use.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, could I interpose a quick question? How many residents in the facility? What's the capacity of the facility?
14.
And
20
how many
seats seems like more than you need.
Yeah, so I want to hear, from the applicant first, maybe of, is 10 the ideal? Is 20, it seems silly. What's your
20
thoughts there?
seemed a little high to us, given the 14 residents at the facility. And the thought being that, when they're out in the courtyard, yes, they can sit down, but they'll also be moving around too. So I think we would be looking for feedback on the board on reducing that. I'm not sure if that's 10, I'm not sure if that's 12, but we'd certainly meet that minimum requirement of 10 seats.
How about 14? You could have a meeting.
I don't know if you know this yet, but how many staff would be on site at a time? Just thinking about total population.
It would vary depending on the time of day.
Time of day.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it sounds like the board is generally inclined to hear an argument to modify that standard at the site plan stage of review.
Yeah, so if you're looking for modification there, just come here with an explanation. I don't think anyone would hesitation over that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so item number 5, we have comments from the Director of Public Works and the Deputy Director of Capital Projects. Both speak to a crosswalk proposal on Meadowland Drive, and so the request would be for you to provide the crosswalk as part of the next application review, and comply with the comment pertaining to the driveway curb radius, which is I think under one of these sets of comments. So is that something that makes sense to integrate at the next stage? Do you have any concerns with that?
No, we don't have any concerns. We're okay proposing that crosswalk at the next stage, as well as taking another look at that driveway radius and just making sure it works with the larger vehicles that may be entering into the site. I did note in the staff notes there was discussion about that crosswalk being at the drive entrance, and while I see why that could make sense too, I'm looking for feedback from the board if you all have a strong preference there. Typically crosswalks are at street intersections. That would be down closer to Bowden Street, but I recognize if you're on the other side of the street, cross at the crosswalk, you'd have to backtrack a little bit too. So I think that's something we're going to look into further with our site plan submission, but just looking for feedback from the board on whether or not you all have a preference on that location.
Yeah, maybe it would help to bring up the site plan that shows the larger perspective, just so we can.
I'm sorry, just make one comment to help sort of clarify for the board, and just a suggestion. Bowden Street comes down. There is no stop sign at the end of Bowden. So we're thinking, we've discussed it, we better, if we can, think about sight lines when we get the location nailed down, because shift change for a couple of the fabrication buildings up ahead come around there fairly quickly at when things change, and it would be better if we can try to stay away from that intersection, just as a suggestion. I'd love to hear your comments.
Marlon, didn't we review an application for the corner there? Oh, and is that not moving forward, or?
Right.
Okay.
So what I was hearing, Dan, again, kind of recommendation to have the crosswalk near the driveway, and your preference was to maybe have it near Bowden, but now it sounds like maybe that's not.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a strong preference
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
just
It's
looking
something
for.
that we would be looking into with our site plan submittal. I was just trying to gauge feedback if
there's
the
any
board had
preference.
a preference at this time.
Okay. Does anyone have feedback to give on that point? Yep.
The only concern I kind of have with having the crosswalk down by Bowden is if you're going to connect the sidewalk coming out on the street down to Bowden before you cross. Because obviously, you know, coming out of the sidewalk and you're on Meadowland Drive, you're probably walking across the street to the sidewalks on the other side rather than walking down the street. So
Sure.
if the crosswalk is proposed for Bowden, I would say you should connect the sidewalk down to the crosswalk if that's the case.
Yes, I also, if you're gonna move the pedestrian easement, and you can talk about if it gets built or not, right? But if you did, and you had the crosswalk down in Bowden, you'd have a concrete path 20 feet away from a 10-foot like gravel path. Just seems silly looking. Would probably suggest that it just be done at the driveway so that you don't have two paths concurrent with each other. If they get built, right?
Yeah, I was going to say I don't have a strong opinion. I think that that was a factor that I was considering as well, as well as what Mark said. And I think for you all, I think you're still working on the specific siting, and so understanding where people are likely to walk often, and combining that with like the safety of that intersection, I think is a key consideration. So I don't have any strong opinion other than sort of making sure that people are safe.
No, I think that's all very helpful. Yeah,
Great.
I think we have what we need.
Ted, did you have anything you wanted? Okay. Great. So we'll move on to item 6. This is under the wetland protection standards. So this is just a request to include the wetland delineation report written by a professional wetland scientist. And it sounds like you all have had your wetland folks out there recently, so you'll be able to provide that at the next stage.
Correct. Yeah.
Great. Item number 7. So this is under the environmental protection standards and considering significant natural communities. So it looks like the project avoids the significant natural communities, but as a property is over 10 acres inside, the applicant will need to be required to provide a project-specific natural resource inventory collected by qualified professionals. And so we're noting this because this is a new requirement under the LDRs that were just noticed or had the public hearing on July 16th. So wanted to make sure you were aware of this requirement.
Yes. Yeah, we're okay complying with that requirement as well. And the project will be subject to Act 250 and would need to comply with that at Act 250.
That as well. Great. Anything else on that one, or does that cover it? Okay. Okay, so the next one is one that you alluded to, which is your proposal includes 2 principal buildings. So we are in this situation where the sketch plan is being reviewed under the current LDRs, but we have new LDRs that are noticed and that we're aware of. And it's a potential that this will not be an issue under the new LDRs, but we are still, for the purposes of tonight's discussion, going to consider the situation in which you would be seeking a waiver, just so we can provide you feedback on that. So the note that staff provides here is the structures are proposed to be 13 feet apart. Considering the modification, and so we're just we want to provide feedback to you all on this. I'll start by just saying, we've looked at the site plan quite a bit. The structures are 13 feet apart, and relative to the scale, it seems like, that's not too far apart. So it still kind of reads as one continuous development, if you will. And I think part of the intention that's addressed by the new LDRs of these being managed by the same entity is helpful in this case too. So I think those two things kind of address the intent that is currently intended by this requirement. So I don't see much of a concern with a waiver here, but would like to hear others' thoughts.
No
I
concern.
guess
Go ahead.
I guess I just have a question. Given that they come so close together, is there any reason? I mean, was it deliberate not to have an interior connection between the two buildings?
Yes.
To help me understand.
Well, we wanted the kids to be at home, like they have a home setting and then they go to school and they go to counseling. So it just seemed it was better for treatment.
Okay.
We had a question. Is the architecture and the massing of the buildings such that they're going to read as two separate buildings? Or is it literally just there's a 13-foot gap between them to keep that as a programmatic separation?
The architecture will be distinct. The residential wing to the east is gabled to, again, reinforce that residential setting that Sandy alluded to, which is part of the trauma-informed design to create this normative setting so that to the extent things can be normal, they will be normal on this site. And so the architecture will be harmonious in the sense that the siding and the details will be similar, but the roof forms and some of the other detailing will tell you that these are two separate structures.
And just out of curiosity, the wing of the administrative and educational building that is closest to the residential building, what is that? Is that a distinct wing with its own function?
That's the school. That's the education
That's
wing.
the school. Okay,
Yeah.
so administration is the larger piece.
And then the
And the
education
school is the wing,
component
right?
is to the north. That's sort of the head of the courtyard, yes.
And we are looking to step up that wing on the administrative building to kind of provide that connectivity from the eastern side of the site over to the western side of the site at that administrative building. So there isn't a very large grade difference between those two buildings.
Okay.
Okay, good. And so again, one of the requirements for the consideration of the board is that, potentially granting this waiver wouldn't nullify any intent that we see as part of this requirement. And so just want to make sure we're comfortable with that. Okay. So yes, I think we would be open to considering this waiver if you're in the situation of future LDRs that it's still relevant.
Is the courtyard
yeah.
going to be grassed?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a kind of a recreation space also? All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Could have a softball game out there, maybe.
All right, we'll move on to comment number 9. This is under the commercial building energy standards. So this requires that the section pertaining to the stretch code, solar ready zone, and must show the solar ready zone and proposed EV spaces at the time of the next time we see you at site plan, and want to confirm that you are aware of this requirement and submitting that.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
we're aware of that.
Can I interject
Yes,
one more
please.
thing? So at the time of packet publication, I hadn't yet heard back from the fire marshal. I did poke him a couple times because I thought it was important that he look at this before this meeting. His feedback, Dan, I would encourage you and Sam to have a conversation with him, and I'd be happy to join that conversation if you think it's necessary. But his feedback was that access to the residential building must meet the requirements of a fire department access road, which includes a 20-foot width with a proper turnaround. I don't know if there are ways to mitigate that or if that is a big deal for this project, but I would encourage you to get ahead of that if that's his comment.
I appreciate that, Marlon. We'll reach out to him.
Excellent, thank you. So this next item is about bicycle storage requirements, and you guys have 2 uses on site. So the recommendation here is just to consider the residential square footage and what bike parking would be required for that, and then separately the office commercial or office space requirement, and consider it kind of a 2-part calculation there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think just given the use of the residential component of the building and that residents wouldn't be leaving the site or going by bicycle, our preference would be to calculate that based off the office use, not the residential use.
So so the recommendation here is to do both, to do a hybrid approach. So I guess a couple things. Understanding the use that's proposed here, right? But it's going to be constructed as if it's a residential building. So maybe there's some point in time where it is a more standard residential building where that is applicable. But I guess I hear from the board, but also wondering from staff any feedback on flexibility on that point. But Mark,
well, I guess I would defer to staff, because why would we consider bicycles, which is definitely not going to be used for the residential for the applicant, and to not require it, but then we're not also including the number of seats in the courtyard for potential administrative people because of the use of the site. I think we got to apply the same standards for what's needed based on what the proposal is before us. So.
Yeah, and so Steph, if you could remind us or just have thoughts on kind of what potential flexibility we might have on this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same flexibility that was outlined for multiple principal structures. If you feel like it's a standard that should be modified, that's fine. Bike parking is important in South Burlington, but I don't think it's a standard that should be considered, the one thing that the project should get stuck on.
I have another question that occurred to me. The way the program runs, will these kids be allowed visitors, or do you expect them to have visitors? How does that work?
Yes.
All right. Where are they going to sit?
In the visiting room.
Okay. Not in the courtyard?
No, probably not.
Okay. So there's no camper activities with visiting parents, for example, so to speak.
RV parking.
All right. Just curious.
Okay, so on the bike parking component, the applicant is proposing in the future to really just focus on the administrative use. And it sounds like we would be open to considering a waiver on that front. So just present it as such when we see you next. Was that everything? Yeah, that was all as far as staff comments.
Before we move on, right, there's 13.11 fences in there. There's discussion about conditional use and how you're going to be able to comply with types of materials and types of prohibited fences allowed. Just want to bring that up, make sure that we are clear, and that you have to produce a conditional use for that. Comment, but it's obviously in there that they're directing that you need to apply for conditional use for that.
Yeah.
Well, so conditional use is required for fences over 8 feet in height, and we don't have any information. It was just a flag. Right. It was just a flag.
Yep.
How high is the fence going to be?
14. Is it going to be 14 feet?
Okay, so you'll need to submit a concurrent. When you apply for your site plan, you'll just check the box for site plan and conditional use together, and then include all the information about the fence. There's a section about conditional use of for fences.
And is it just a straight 14-foot fence?
You want me to take that, Dan?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
You got mine, or Sam has some more information on what that fence.
Yeah, it's
look like.
a 14-foot no climb fence. Right now, we're hoping to use the more architectural grade, which has a clear view through it. So it's actually a very attractive fence. So we'll include that in the site application at that time.
What did you call it? A no climb fence?
We don't want anyone to climb the fence.
I know, I understand, but
that's a technical term. Yeah, it sounds goofy, but yeah, it's the intent.
Thank you. All right, board, anything else? Anything else from you all before we move on from this? Have your feedback that you're looking for?
I'm going to say you got everything that you need to get you to the next. Okay, great.
Yeah, we do. Appreciate the feedback.
Great. All right, so we will now open this item up for public comment. Is there anyone in person or online? Just show of hands if you're looking to make a comment on this item tonight. All right, not seeing any.
We have one online.
Okay, great.
And then there's actually someone who phoned in, so I'm going to unmute them for just a second and ask them if they wanted to make a public comment as well. The 814 number, if you want to make a public comment, can you just say yes right now? Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to allow you to talk. And Quinn, I don't know if you want to provide any guidelines on public comments.
Yeah, so just to provide a little bit of context, so public comment portions of our meeting are typically, the purpose is not to provide a question and answer session, but provide the opportunity for members of the public to provide comments that might inform our decision. And so a reminder that our authority is limited to determining whether a project complies with the land development regulations. So to the extent possible, that you can focus on items that we might have discussed tonight or may otherwise be related to our decision. That's helpful. That being said, you don't need to be well versed in the land use development regulations to make comments. Our job will be to listen to your comments and then determine what's relevant when we do our review. And I'll also say, if you have any questions about participating in our process, we are happy to address those. And so with that, Em, if you would like to provide comments on this.
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, great. Hi, my name is Em. I reside in South Burlington, and I'm just curious, forgive me if I missed this, but is the designation of this proposed project still that of a group home? And if so, are the doors on either or both of these two buildings locked in the conceptual design? Will they be locked? Will the residents, the youth, the children be able to leave at will? Just some questions there around the zoning or permitting around whether or not the doors will be locked.
Yeah, so the development is still characterized as a group home, and that is defined in, is this in the LDRs or the other statute that
It's
you
actually
pulled
both.
here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
both.
if you want me to answer that question, like you said, you know, the board can decide whether they want the questions to be answered. So a group home is defined in the LDR as a therapeutic community residence as defined by 33 VSA 7102 paragraph 11. And 33 VSA 7102 paragraph 11 is a state statute which defines their, Alex, can you actually pull this up? It's on the
page 3.
Top of page 3. Therapeutic community residence is defined by the state as a place, however named, excluding hospitals as defined by statute, that provides for-profit or otherwise transitional individualized treatment to 3 or more residents with major life adjustment problems, such as a substance use disorder, psychiatric disability, or delinquency. A use meeting this definition requires a license from the state, which has to be reviewed annually, and the LDRs rely on that licensing to demonstrate compliance with the use.
Great. And so on that note, we didn't, as part of this discussion, the status of the buildings being locked and how that's going to operate didn't come up. I will say if the applicant is prepared to speak to that right now, I would ask you to, but if you don't know the details of that, we can address it another time.
It will be secure.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And thanks for those questions. Did you have any other additional comments that you wanted to make?
Thank you. Yes, I have one more. It kind of follows that, I suppose. Just want to make sure I'm phrasing this correctly. So, am I understanding correctly that current zoning allows for locked detention facilities for minors, or will the zoning have to change given the definition you just laid out?
So this is going to be classified as a group home, and the LDRs allow for that.
Yes.
Staff, I don't know if you have.
Yes, that's
Yep.
correct. It's currently an allowed use.
Yep. So yeah, there won't be any change to allow for this development in this area.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah. Any other comments?
It's a pivot, but I have a question about the delineation reports for the ecological surveys that were done. Is that, it sounds like that was an extra step that was taken at will on behalf of the applicant rather than a formal process that is mandated by the state of Vermont or even the city of South Burlington. Is that correct? And if so, at what point would an environmental assessment of that formality come through?
Yeah, so sorry, I think I didn't hear your question correct. You're asking about inventory of natural resources on the property?
Yes, I guess I'm just trying
Yeah.
to better understand the
Yeah.
order of operations for any future assessments, because if the applicant is saying everything is good with regards to the wildlife corridors, is there a third party audit that will happen?
Yeah, so I guess what I can offer here is that this is sketch. So what the applicant is proposing here is conceptual, and there are requirements in at our next phase of review where the applicant will be providing more detailed natural resource information, and then we will be reviewing that against the development, the LDRs or the land development regulations. And so we will be, making sure the project complies to those. But the amount of information that is required and is available at this stage of review is limited because we're not in the position of making a final determination yet.
Can I add one thing? And I'll just add that, as mentioned previously, we did meet the state out there who confirmed the wetlands on site. And as part of our next stage of review, we will be including that confirmation from the state, as well as addressing the natural resource items, RTE, the significant communities outlined in was that, Marla, section 1209 of the updated LDRs, I believe. So we will be providing that as part of our next phase of with our site plan submittal as well.
Great. I hope that helps clarify kind of the order of operations here. Any other comments that you have at this time?
Just wondering the next step. So what happens next in this process?
Yeah, so the this was sketch plan and we gave the applicant feedback, and so they will be filing another application that will be noticed to the same extent that this one was noticed, and that will be an application that has a more detailed site plan and additional information.
Great.
In terms
Thank
of
you.
timeline,
Thanks,
that
everyone.
has to happen within the next 6 months.
Okay, great. So within 6 months, that should be coming through. Great.
Got it. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. All right, and we didn't have anyone else pop up online?
Nope.
Okay, and no one else. And so on that note, again, this is the first step for this application, so there'll be other opportunities to provide public comment if folks chose to do so. So this is a sketch. We don't need to continue. We will just, we'll just see you next time when we see you. Great.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the information.
Okay. So moving on to agenda item number 7. Yep, you can move towards the front. This is master plan sketch plan application PZ sketch 2026-7 of the Snyder Residential Building Company LLC for an undeveloped 7.02 acre lot. The master plan consists of creation of 6 lots, of which 2 are proposed as conservation lots and 3 as development lots to be constructed in phases, with the first phase consisting of 32 dwelling units in a multi-family building and associated site improvements. This is 25, our project is located at 25 Larkin Drive. We again have a sketch application, so I do not need to swear you in, but if you could just start by introducing yourselves.
Yep. I'm Chris Snyder with the Snyder Residential Building Company.
Andy Rowe with Snyder Residential Building Company.
Very good, thank you. And do you guys have anyone online tonight, or is it just you guys?
It's just us.
Okay, thank you. All right. So the first time we're seeing this application from you all, or this project. So I'll ask if you could just give us an overview of the proposal at this point.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll do a quick overview. So this is a parcel of land that is contiguous to existing hotels and apartment buildings located off of Shelburne Road, and sort of it's tucked in between Harborview Road and Larkin Way. And there are, we're proposing to subdivide parts, create different lots within that area. And on one of the lots, we will be developing or proposing to develop a 32 unit, 4-story building that will be either apartments or for sale units, which has not been determined yet. And this does have, as outlined in our application, it has the necessary parking, sort of storage, and for the specific lot associated with the property. And I'll let Andy add anything else in terms of the overview.
Just as there's a lot of natural resources on the perimeter of this site. There's a couple of tributaries of Bartlett Brook to the north and the south of Larkin Way, and that makes up, the lion's share of this property. There's a little over 2.3 acres of developable land on this site. In addition to Larkin Way right-of-way, there's 2 conservation lots. Those properties will be, the natural resources will be preserved in those conservation lot areas. As Chris mentioned, we're proposing a multifamily building on lot 2. There's also a civic lot and then 2 other undeveloped lots. We can get into those a little bit more in the staff report, but there's nothing proposed on those lots at this time. And there's really nothing envisioned for those. They are adjacent to the lots along Larkin Way to the west, so there is the potential to develop those potentially with a small multifamily building, to have some amenity space for some of the adjacent property, some additional parking, or some combination. And if those weren't developed as individual separate lots, they could be merged with the adjacent property to the west through a boundary line adjustment in the future.
Okay, thank you. Board, any questions, or do we want to bring up the subdivision plan, or just do that as we go through the comments? All right, we can move forward. Okay, great. So the first item in the staff report is regarding lot coverage. So the application reports 18 and 55% building and lot coverage. These percentages are unclear what they're referring to, so we're looking for clarification on these numbers.
So that's the building and lot coverage for lot 2 only. Because this is a subdivision and not a PUD, we'll need to comply with building and lot coverage on an individual lot basis, not the 7 acres in its entirety.
Okay, that is the clarification we needed. Thank you. So this next item is
phasing and timeline?
yeah, phasing and timing. Thank you. So this is regarding you'll be submitting a master plan review. So your plan for phasing and timing of the development.
So I'll back up a second. We're here as design build contractors, basically. Snyder will not have any ownership interest in any of the lots or the building. We're strictly a design build firm in this case, not retaining ownership in anything. So in terms of phasing, construction on lot 2, Larkin Way, and the Civic lot would be the initial phase, and that would start within, as soon as all the permits are in place, within 6 months. Lots 1 and 3, as I mentioned, are future phases. There's nothing planned for those lots. Something may happen in future years, but there's nothing envisioned for those lots at this time.
Thank you. If I could, staff, ask a question. Is it often we see a master plan with lots that don't have a kind of sense of what might be proposed on all the lots?
Well, so the submission requirements do require a development plan, both for the sketch plan and for the master plan. Alex's staff report talks a little farther along about the sufficiency of the development plan for this sketch, and then identifies some things that are definitely going to need to be added in order to get through the master plan process. So I think if I can sort of paraphrase what we talked about, has a long ways to go to get a master plan approval, but the plan for the site seems relatively well thought out.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
So can we, I guess a question from us would be, what do you want to see on lots 1 and 3? Do you want to see a development proposal, or that they could be site amenities, or that they could be boundary line adjustments and merged with the adjacent lots?
Yeah, I think the staff report addresses some of those items, and then if there's kind of outstanding pieces of where you should go from here, we can talk about that at the end. That probably makes sense, unless you guys have something you want to offer at this point. Okay, so we'll walk through the comments, and then whatever it seems like it's unclear, we can talk about holistically at the end. Great. So moving on to item number 3. So under the master plan process, you have some flexibility on how to structure your submissions. So the question here is how you are planning your submissions, and if you plan to submit items concurrently.
We'd ask that the board consider allowing us to proceed with master plan and preliminary, and then site plan and final.
So you'll be combining master plan and preliminary, and then site plan
and final
as a separate.
Yes, okay. Site plan with final concurrently as well.
Okay, and that's allowed. Great, perfect. So 2 submissions on that front. Item number 4, this is regarding existing conditions. So this is regarding the location of your 150-foot wide habitat connector overlay. And we were wondering if you could explain your rationale for determining the configuration of the 150-foot wide habitat connector overlay. So yeah, our staff's brought up the map here. So if you could talk through the habitat connector location.
So the habitat connector in the GIS database is actually roughly 50 feet wide, but the LDRs require a minimum width of 150 feet. We have set that using the edge being the rear of the condominiums on the adjacent property to the northeast, and basically the property line to the east behind the condominiums at Harbor Heights, and then extended that 150 feet onto the subject property. It's dimensioned from the back of the condominiums to the northeast, and so that's how we're achieving the 150-foot minimum.
Can you identify what on this plan it represents the habitat connector?
It is the, I believe it's the double, I think they're magenta lines.
I can zoom way in if I just couldn't read it from this distance. Habitat block and habitat connector. Okay, so you.
It bounded by the bold red
the
line.
red.
The bold red.
And the bold red represents the adjusted line at 150-foot width.
What's that?
Who owns the condominiums?
There's two separate condominium associations. The one to the northeast is...
They're privately owned. They're not owned by the... I don't think there's a single owner of the...
Let me ask a better question. What is the pale yellow band that's just immediately inside the boundary of the corridor?
That's the river corridor overlay.
Okay.
So could I, sorry, and I might be misinterpreting this. So the 150 width goes beyond the property boundary of this property. Is that what
That's
I'm saying?
correct.
Okay.
But you're
So
relying. Well,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
I think that's what
I
you're
mean, that
getting
was kind of my point. You're relying on the river corridor to assure that that's a plausible thing to do, and that's not going to be developed in that corridor, right? Or
staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure that the habitat connector necessarily needs to rely upon the river corridor overlay. The position, the GIS mapped position of the 150-foot habitat connector is such that it's closer to the property line, and in this fashion, to achieve the 150 feet, we're extending it more onto this property than onto the adjacent property. I think sort of the genesis of this issue lies in the fact that it was mapped by the city as something that is very narrow, but then was implemented in the LDRs in something that's 150 feet wide.
I get all that. All I'm getting at is your 150 feet can be sustained at 150 feet because nobody can develop anything within the river corridor. Is that correct?
I think yes. In this case, it's sort of belt and suspenders, yes, but the belt is provided by the LDRs. The suspenders is the river corridor overlay, yes.
I don't get that part. When you have a 150-foot requirement, how you're going to meet it, and your answer is, if you're concerned about the stuff that's outside our boundary, it's because it's a river corridor, and no one's going to build anything in the river corridor. Is that coherent, Marla? Okay.
And
I think, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah. And if I could just ask a question, because I can't recall how often we've seen the habitat connector. So it's allowed for them to identify it beyond the boundaries of their property. Just how does that work from a kind of...
Yeah, the habitat connector, there's only a few places in the city. And the... Alex, does this report excerpt the habitat connector stuff, or was that...
It does. Yes, it does. Further down.
Okay. Tell me when to stop.
It's on page 19.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we didn't totally excerpt the standards in the staff report, but the habitat connector is a little bit of this is where it is, and the standards say, and it needs to become 150 feet wide over time by failing to develop in it.
Yep.
So the red hatch, not the pink hatch, but the red hatch is where it is, and then the 150 feet is what Andy has shown with the red dashed line is what's going to be protected in order to become part of the habitat connector over time.
Yeah. Unlike the habitat block, it doesn't say that it has to remain on the developed parcel.
Right.
It does say at the end, though, applicant may request in writing to waive this requirement. The DRB may grant the waiver only if the restoration of the habitat connector is not possible due to placement of pre-existing structures. So I guess we wouldn't waive that because it is possible.
Right.
And it doesn't require it to be on the subject lot where the reestablished boundary is.
Yeah.
It's within the river corridor. Makes sense.
Okay. And I guess the idea also being like if the lot next door came in, they would have to be held in compliance with the habitat corridor requirement as well. So we wouldn't authorize any development there anyways. So that's why it can extend. Okay, great.
And I think I'd like to add, the river corridor is not obviously perfectly straight lines. And we've taken, if you look at the measurements piece there of where that river corridor is versus where the two outer lines are, more of the habitat connector is on this parcel. And so if you equally spaced it, it would be into the town, the existing homes there. And so that isn't really viable. So I think we're trying to maintain that 150 corridor, but it can't be perfectly equidistant.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that discussion. Again, we don't see this a lot, so it's helpful for us just to chat through it. And so with that discussion, I would say I didn't hear any concerns with this proposal. So I think we're in support of it as well to address comment. All right, the next section is about the development plan. So first, the question is asking for your plan for the proposed street topology, any proposed recreation paths, and any improvements proposed for public dedication that might be included.
So we're not proposing anything for public dedication. We did discuss keeping Larkin Way as a private street with Public Works Department, and unless the city requests that it be, we would propose that it continue to remain private. The typology that we're talking about applies to the segment that is within the project parcel, not continuing on down to Shelburne Road. So we're talking about roughly a 450-foot long segment. What's shown on the plan includes a 5-foot wide sidewalk on one side, which complies. We're proposing a 5-foot green belt. Although as you approach Harborview Road, Larkin Way crosses through the wetland buffer, and we would like the board's feedback on placing the sidewalk directly adjacent to the curb in order, thereby eliminating the green belt in order to reduce the roadway footprint within the wetland buffer. We anticipate that is going to be a comment that we're going to get from the state, and we'd like the board's feedback on that.
Andy, did I miss what you said you were proposing for the street typology?
Neighborhood.
Local neighborhood?
Yes, local neighborhood is, I think the staff report had recited that. So we have no on-street bike or ped facilities, 8-foot wide on-street parking, 50-foot wide right-of-way, 15-foot maximum curb radius is required. We are proposing 2 11-foot wide lanes instead of the 10-foot minimum. Again, curb to curb of 20 feet is very narrow. We'd, again, like the board's feedback on going to 22 feet instead of 20 feet total curb to curb.
Yeah, so could we bring up the site plan just to look at a couple of those items regarding this street?
What's paved now is about 30 feet.
Okay, so
there's no curbs there now, but pavement edge to pavement edge is about 30 feet.
Okay, so just to your first item you mentioned was putting the sidewalk, removing the greenbelt area?
Yes, and that would only be as you approach. I'm guessing it's maybe 100 feet from Harborview Road into the site.
So adjacent to conservation lot 6, please. Yeah, there you go. Right there.
Oh, okay, I see.
Oh, so you're showing it with a green belt.
We're showing it with the green belt.
But you're asking to change it. Got it.
We know that it's going to be requested by the state in terms of.
As far as to minimize wetland impacts. So it would be that what
Yes.
Martha just said.
And if it won't be accepted, that will be our reply to the state.
Can you zoom in so that I can't tell where the road is in that area because it's blurred or something? You know what I mean? Like, I can't tell where the existing road line goes.
Yeah, let me see if I can open a different version of this file.
I have it
that
on
is
my
blurry.
CAD viewer, right, and it's still coming in blurred. Did you do that purposely, or?
No,
No.
it's I believe it's shown as a dash line.
No,
And through,
you can
and through
see
there,
it.
it runs right to the top of the slope.
Right, north of there, you can totally see it. It's clear, and then you get down to this conservation lot, and everything becomes.
It may be underneath the curb line on the west side and close to the edge of the sidewalk, if not in the edge of the sidewalk on the west side.
Looks like the file got a bit corrupted because the original version is
Alright.
fine.
Yeah, so then moving the concrete sidewalk would be within the existing footprint of the roadway.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, we'd like to get it as much
Yep.
within as it could be.
I'm sorry. I think that makes sense, and I'm just not started. Staff, is there any thing that would potentially be in conflict with that alteration?
No, it's typical practice of the board to allow no green belt through wetland and
Yeah.
wetland buffers.
Okay, great. So yeah, that's something that you can plan on with your redesign or your next proposal. And then your second item was about having the street at
Two
20.
11-foot lanes instead of the 10-foot maximum in the typology table.
And can you speak to why you would be looking for that, given
10-foot lanes are just very narrow, especially in a curbed condition. The curb doesn't give you any measure of error on either side. You are on a curve. There are trucks that use Harborview Road, and then we'll use Larkin Way in order to access the hotels on the lower property. Meeting somebody during winter maintenance times. There's a number of scenarios where two cars passing one another on a 20-foot wide curved road is snug.
board thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, I might have missed this. What is it currently existing at?
The paved width is about 30 feet. There are no curbs.
Okay.
No.
And you're proposing 22-foot curbed?
In order to we're proposing to narrow it substantially in order to comply with the typology table.
So I've highlighted the relevant row of the table. So for a local neighborhood street, the maximum lane width is 10 feet. You can see kind of what the range of the universe is for different street types. Within these smaller streets that are shown on this page, the next page shows like arterials and like boulevards and interstates and things. This page, 10 feet is kind of the norm. The only one that is higher than that is a support street, which is described as a side street, parallel a primary thoroughfare, harmonious transition from high activity to the surrounding context, space for deliveries, additional on-street parking. And then if you go to neighborhood streets, it says neighborhood streets are the default street type for residential areas and form the basic structure of the local street network.
Yeah, I mean, my initial thought on it was, and I, again, appreciate looking at this table as well of, my understanding is part of the intention of kind of keeping those narrow streets, especially in the residential areas, to, calm traffic and have that, folks maybe be a little bit more careful. And as long as it doesn't actually prohibit the maneuvering of any vehicles that might be using it, I'm not super inclined to expand that. But I would, other board members, what are your thoughts on that?
I think I won't be putting anyone on the spot who is not currently providing testimony, but I did see some folks nodding too. So I wonder if it would be worth hearing public comment on any preferences that could potentially inform. So like if there are considerations that we haven't thought of, anything like that. This is not a road that I travel. I don't think I've ever been on it, and so I'd be curious to hear folks who do use this, kind of what that experience is, and if there are other conditions that maybe we're not thinking of, that might help us inform. Because I'm with you. I don't, but I also think that maybe we need a little bit more information.
Would like to add one comment, and I realize that this is a neighborhood street, but it's also somewhat of a support street for all the facilities that are down below it.
That's kind of the sense I was getting when you were saying the
But
delivery back to the hotel.
Don't pick the road type that discourages transit facilities, right? Pick a different road type.
Yeah, we can pick a
That would be
different road type.
Compliant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Could be an option.
And
I see, sorry, we do take public comment at the end, so if you can lock it in, and we'd love to hear from you, okay? Okay, so I think maybe that feedback, maybe explore a different road type if that 11-foot drive is going to be important.
I mean, one of the major changes with a larger road type is parking on two sides.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm highlighting that this is the range of widths, and the only one that has a higher maximum. Again, the board has the ability to modify standards, but just if you're looking to understand the range of recommendations, the street type that's larger also does have parking on both sides.
Right, and the one that you selected at the bottom, it says transit facilities encouraged for that one. So that's the one that, but then you have to comply with everything around it. So yeah, you have to have parking on both sides.
But I have one quick question. So we finally panned over enough to the left side of the street to know what the 20-foot minimum, 22-foot max for the pavement width. You're proposing 2 lanes, 11-foot each, 22-foot wide. How is that any different than proposing 2 10-foot lanes that are of a 22-foot wide max pavement width?
I'm going to guess the 26 max includes parking, right? So that you get 20-foot max for like a transit area, and then if you add on street parking, gets you to 26 max. You can't get 13-foot lanes out of the 26 max.
That's correct. Yep, the 26 includes 1 lane of parking, so it'd be 2 9-foot lanes and an 8-foot parking.
And then, on the support street, right, you get to 22 foot, but then you get 34 because you have parking on either.
And I'm going to be a comment about parking on street, on narrow street typologies, on a curve. I drive Market Street every day, and it makes me nervous as all get out as I come around the bend. So going both directions.
And that's for a reason, right? The FHWA purposely causes larger bulb outs at the intersections and narrower streets to discourage speeding, right? In neighborhood areas that residential people are living in. So this is what this is. I believe this is what the document's based off of.
This is what the intention is.
I do understand
and you're proposing residential use.
Yes, that's correct. We are. But I'm just, as a user, a consistent user, I do find that on the bend, I have on more of a straight section, I understand that, but on the bend, it seems to me it's a bit tight.
Right.
But that's just me.
Other
That's my
users
personal
that aren't driving might be encouraged that people have to slow down, right? If your main concern is not residential use and more for a transit use for commercial properties, I would encourage you to look at different street use.
Understand.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if I could maybe summarize the feedback from the board is, to the extent you stay within one of the defined street types and meet those parameters, that would be our recommendation. If you do want to propose something that's, changes one of these factors, be prepared to sell us on it.
Understand.
If that makes sense. Okay.
As a user, I'm not a big fan of speed humps, but as a homeowner on my street, I'm kind of in favor.
Yes. understand.
Did you have something? Okay. All right. So moving on from there, this next comment is about the development plan and the components that are required. So this was the discussion we started to have at the beginning. And just as a reminder, the development plan is a required component of sketch plan. So we are, staff has identified items that appear to be missing or not entirely addressed in the application materials provided. So yeah, great. So this is the list of items that are needed in the site plan. And the first item that's noted by staff as needing more information on is land for renewable energy production. Item number 2.
So there's no land specifically reserved for renewable energy production. The rooftop of the multifamily building would be subject to the solar requirement, but in terms of land specifically reserved for renewable energy production, there's none reserved.
Okay, so no lands on that front. The next one is item number 4, proposed rec paths, if there are any.
There's no proposed recreation paths. There is an existing recreation path easement that follows the river corridor to the southwest that crosses Conservation Lot 1. And as I mentioned, just kind of expanding on that, I think that might be a shortened version of the development plan criteria, but it talks about public transit routes, infrastructures, utility corridors. Again, we're proposing that Larkin Way be a private street. We provide easements around the existing water mains and the sewer mains. Existing electric and telecom are on the north side of the street. They have the capacity to serve the lots. We would utilize the existing water main and sewer mains for development on Lot 2. Future development on Lots 1 and 3 would utilize that same water main. No stubs were proposed at this point because we don't know what's going to be happening on those, at least for Lot 1. Sewer is located to the west on the adjacent developed property and would most likely connect to that sewer main if there was future development on either Lots 1 or Lot 3.
Okay. So you were just going.
Just trying to hit all
hit all of them.
All the
okay.
aspects of number 4.
Okay, number 4. Okay, and then number 6 is proposed transition areas. And if you can respond to that, please do. But I was just wondering if staff could speak to what that means in this context, the transition area.
So this submission element refers to transition areas are defined elsewhere in the LDR as areas that are sort of go from one home type to another or one building type to another. Thinking about the context of this project, that's not very useful. Maybe it's the other page in this guy. Maybe it's this guy. Nope. Nope. I don't know that there's a really good sheet that shows how this kind of communicates with the remainder of the development. Maybe it's just the first page of the staff report. This guy. So transition from this type of building to this type of building or this type of building.
Okay, thank you. So if you could speak to any proposed transition areas.
So there's no specific zones specifically proposed. However, conservation lots 1 and 2 do provide a transition between the proposed development lots along Larkin Way and the existing condominiums to the northeast and the east, as well as the mixed use and commercial development along Harborview Road, as well as not really mixed use, but the senior complex directly across the street at the intersection of Harborview Road and Larkin Way. Lots 1 and 3, again, without a specific use. They'll need to contemplate the transition between the civic lot and the multifamily on lot 2 and the existing apartment buildings to the west on the adjacent property. Currently, there's parking in a little bit of green open space, not classified as amenity area, but amenity area adjacent to lot 3 to the west.
Okay. Jumping ahead to building types, and my understanding is this would be for each phase of the development, which might be where we run into kind of the uncertainty of what's might be on the 2 remaining lots. But if you could, do I have that correct? That we would, yeah. So this is an area where we would be looking for a description of building types on all 3 of the developable lots.
So I guess the message we're getting is you want to see a sketch plan layout for lots 1 and 3 in the master plan. Is that?
Yeah.
Typical.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And part of that is I think staff gets at it at another point of, ensuring that those lots are developable to, a reasonable within the LDRs, whether it's for residential or commercial. So having that in broad strokes is what we look for. Okay, so it sounds like we will get that in the future. And then last item is any land facilities or improvements proposed for public dedication.
There are none.
None. Okay, great.
Unless, and again, I guess we'd be looking for feedback if you feel to the contrary, but we're proposing that the civic lot as well as Larkin Way remain private. All the lots, Larkin Way, everything remains under the current ownership.
Yep. Makes sense. All right. So item number 7 is asking about the inclusionary housing requirements. And I think at the beginning you noted that you're not sure if these are going to be rentals or for sale yet. So maybe you can't speak to too much detail of this, but just a reminder that that inclusionary requirement will be there.
Yes,
yeah.
We understand that. We understand there's a difference between the rental or for sale, and that in our next application we'll have that.
Okay, great.
I just wanted to mention one other thing that you may not have noticed because you're only thinking about this lot, but the LDRs do require the lots to be considered together for the purposes of inclusionary when they're it's a bunch of criteria, but it's like developed within 5 years and same ownership and directly adjacent. They're all taken together.
They're all okay.
So if you were to do something where you provided more inclusionary because that's the way your model worked, then those can be applied to lots 1 and 3, or the other way around. Lots 1 and 3 would have to provide enough, even if they didn't trigger inclusionary on their own, they would still have to meet it because it's considered together.
Great, thank you. So this next one is about the management plan. And so the management plan is something or is a requirement for master plans, and it's for both to kind of assign responsibility and how the project is going to progress, both for building it out, but then also operation of it. So just to the extent you can think of or speak to how you foresee the management of this project working, again, both in construction and long-term. Understand if you can't speak to that in detail now, but again, just want to make sure it's understood as that's a requirement for the master plan.
And again, all of the property, all the elements will remain under the same ownership. Okay. So there's not different parties involved in terms of management. They'll all be managed by the same entity.
That's helpful. And so, yeah, in the LDRs, there's specific requirements for the management plan. So again, just making sure that those are addressed when you come back to us. Board, step in if you have anything to add on these. Next item is under the subdivision review. So this is asking to describe future plans for additional subdivision or development in addition to the proposed multi-unit building and associated development on Lot 2. So again, this is, I think, a reiteration of what we were speaking to before. We need more clarity on what might go on those two future lots.
Understood.
Okay. Moving on to item number 10. This is similar to also speaking to kind of how you want to submit your applications. So if you are looking for any combined reviews for your subdivision applications.
We wouldn't be combining the subdivision applications, but again, would be combining preliminary and master plan and then site plan and final.
Okay, thank you. All right, this is development standards. So again, this is focusing on the two properties that don't have a development proposal right now. And this is asking if you can speak to what you foresee there, but I think I've gathered that you guys don't have anything prepared to kind of speak on those two items tonight, or those two lots tonight. So I think we can move on, but know that that's being looked for in the future. Unless there is something else I was missing in that comment. Good, okay. All right, moving on to the civic space requirement. So you've identified location of civic space, but the type of civic space hasn't been identified yet. And so here staff is asking about plans to safely connect the civic space to Lot 2. And then also if you at this time can speak to what type of civic space you foresee in that area, if you have thoughts on that.
So we propose a pocket park on the civic space lot. There's a number of mature trees, most of which would remain. There are some that will need to be removed for the reconstruction of Larkin Way and to make sure that we've got adequate site distance at that proposed crosswalk in order to connect the development on Lot 2 with the civic space lot. In terms of improvements on the civic space lot, it's currently mostly a lawn area. We propose to maintain that lawn space for low impact type of activities, whether it's throwing a ball or a frisbee. We'd have some benches located particularly at the end of the sidewalk for accessibility, and also locate some benches elsewhere, and then maintain the mature trees.
Great, that's helpful. So yeah, pocket park, and then your connection is the crosswalk here.
Correct.
Great, and thank you for the other details. Anything else on that board?
Andy, you said it's mostly lawn? Your tree line, existing conditions tree line shows that it's mostly wooded.
They they mow the understory, but there are, I mean, it's well covered with mature trees through there.
Got it.
So I think that's what that's reflecting.
All right, so this is comment number 13. And again, so this is proposed phasing and timeline again. And so to the extent, again, if you can talk to future construction and the intended order of construction of these lots, please do so. But again, I understand you might not have that information to share tonight.
So construction on Lot 2, Larkin Way, and the Civic Lot is the initial phase. Those will all happen concurrently and be complete prior to the certificate of occupancy for the multifamily building, Construction on lots 1 and 3 will be in the future. We'll include a conceptual layout for those two lots. And again, timeline, construction will begin on Lot 2 as soon as all state and local permits are in place. At least 6 months will be a condition to obtain a zoning permit. Worst case would be we ask for a 6-month extension and it gets bumped out to 12. But the intent is to move forward with construction as soon as all permits are in hand.
Great. And so, again, just at the next stage, we'll want the proposal for the order of the other lots as well.
So we can provide the order. Is it necessary that we provide a defined timeline for those two lots?
It will be, but to the extent you can speak to the order and how you are, the thought process behind the proposed order of development would be helpful.
Okay.
Do you, sorry, it sounded like you could speak
I'm
to
not
that.
sure if we don't, we're going to propose a conceptual layout for lots 1 and 3. I mean, we could pick 5 years out of the air, but it would be just that. It wouldn't have any basis in anything.
Okay, yeah, sorry. The basis was if you have an intended order of development and there was a reason why you were going to be proposing to develop lot 1 before lot 3 or vice versa after lot 2 is developed, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so moving on to item 14. So at the next stage of development, you'll need to identify all applicable site features. So this is things like historic resources, prominent shade trees, geologic features, and staff proposes here or has asked for the board to discuss whether it's appropriate to not require evaluation of site features on the lots that are proposed for conservation. I don't see a concern with not having this inventory be done on those lots since they'll be conserved. Any concerns from board? Okay, so when you compile the site features, you can leave the conservation lots out of that.
Can I ask staff or the board, is there a requirement on the minimum size tree that be located or that be identified as a site feature? And if we could propose that only trees 6 inches or larger be shown? If there is even a requirement?
Is there anything, there's nothing on any site plans that exist now for the area. Is that correct?
No, but there are a number of mature trees and we have no problem showing the mature trees. It's just if there's a 4-inch tree, either on lot 2 or 3, is it necessary
There's no minimum requirement.
Okay. Our intent would be to show mature trees 6 inches or larger.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, the board can, this prominent shade trees, street trees, documented specimen or witness trees. The board has had this conversation with another applicant recently. I think this terminology is meant to call to mind, trees that are significant in the landscape, and that may vary depending on what that landscape is. If it's a farm field, the 4-inch tree may be the most significant thing for a couple acres. But if it's, relatively wooded area, larger trees certainly seems fine.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to item number 15. This is about the conservation lots. And so could you, you've talked to that all the property is going to maintain under the same ownership. So is that how those conserved lots will be maintained?
That's correct, yes.
And will you be doing a formal conservation easement for those or just have them managed as conservation lots?
I think they would likely just be covered by covenants that would prevent any activity in accordance with the LDRs.
Yeah, the conservation easement isn't required, just was wondering if that was part of it. Okay, so this next item is a requirement for street network. So this is again about the street typology, looking at least at this point, the local neighborhood street is proposed and looking to discuss any potential issues with sidewalks, crosswalks, and pedestrian access along Larkin Way. So you can see the requirements above there. I think we probably mostly addressed this with our conversation of the street previously.
Andy, you had had some questions about the sidewalk configuration that when we met about this, and wanted to give you the opportunity to ask those questions to the board if you still felt like they were questions in your mind.
Sure, we discussed this with Public Works as well. right in front of the building, there is a existing MTC cabinet, electrical MTC cabinet, that is right on the edge of the right of way there. So that's why we were proposing to shift the sidewalk slightly outside the right of way. If the board has any feedback on that, we'd love to hear it at this point. We do also need to have that discussion with Green Mountain Power to see whether there's any issues with leaving that in place.
Where would you propose? Because right now, along Larkin in the wetland area to the south, you're going to be right along the road. Where is it going to separate to create the green space? After the driveway?
No, I think once we got outside the wetland buffer, we would look to get that 5 foot, transition over 15 or 20 feet and get that 5 foot green strip back. We could hold it to the driveway, but that wasn't what we were thinking. We would only do it within the wetland buffer, so that we could have, that 5 feet is a nice snow storage space.
Yeah.
Okay, Charlie, looks like he's still thinking, but
No, it's fine.
okay, good. As far as relocating or altering the path of the sidewalk around the utility box there, I don't see an issue with that. Board, any thoughts? That seems very reasonable as shown.
The utility box is for power to this building, right? It's not like a transmission box or
It's not a transformer. It's just basically a very large junction box that's part way up. Power does continue on to Harborview Road and tie in there and continue down the hill towards Shelburne Road.
Is it labeled here somewhere, or can someone point out where that is?
It's right next to the ramp.
Right below the ramp.
Yeah. Oh, yes, I see it.
So your testimony is that Green Mountain Power came over and said, yes, we could move this box. You would stay within the right of way. But if they come in and say, no, this is like critical infrastructure and we have no way of changing this configuration, you have to push yourself outside the right of way.
Right.
Okay.
Green Mountain Power will
Generally,
anything can be done at a cost.
yeah. Generally, Green Mountain Power wants to be located outside the right of way. So,
but where this is going to be a private right of way, it would be fine.
So it seems like it could work in this particular scenario to leave as is and not create a whole kerfuffle between GMP and their right of way approach. That is that junction box provides a looped connection for the western property. So they're not going to love a shutdown of it, but obviously it happens. But our preference would be to leave it if possible.
Yeah. Great. And so does that cover the potential alterations you wanted to discuss?
Yes, I would just note that we are making the sidewalk connection at Harborview Road, which includes an existing sidewalk down to Shelburne Road, and we're also continuing slightly to the west of the project boundary with a segment of sidewalk to tie into the sidewalk in front of 141 or 144 Larkin Way in order to connect to their network, which either leads to or very near Shelburne Road, but certainly connects with the other apartment buildings and the restaurant.
Great. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 17, there's some comments from the Deputy Director of Capital Projects, and this is just a awareness that you should address these before the next stage of review.
Yep, we've had that discussion with them already.
Great. All right, so this next item is about the building lots. Generally, and the requirement here is that building lots must generally be rectangular in shape with side lot lines that are perpendicular or radial to the abutting street and rear lot lines that parallel the street. So here so the rear lot lines are somewhat irregular. And so a discussion here about if there's an ability to reduce kind of the complexity of the rear lot lines that are being proposed. So if we could bring up the
I think it's more than just lots 1 and 4. I think it's all of them because it looks like you're just following the top of slope.
Yeah,
We're
for
following the
all of lots 1 through 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
just
Sorry,
lots
I
1 and
probably
4. Okay.
didn't say it clearly.
I totally get right. Following top of slopes, nice, but
So the hazards and the level 1 resources have to be on a conservation lot. So the other part of this that I'm not sure as it was really pointed out, we had discussed it with staff, and at their suggestion, we were going to request a reduction in the rear yard setback, which is currently 30 feet. The side yard is 10 and the front yard is 20. And everything fits within the setbacks as shown. But if the rear yard setback was reduced to 20 feet, we could reduce some of those rear yard property line segments to be a little more regular.
going back to your comment for site 3 and site 1, that there might be a line adjustment later on in the future and merge with the larger lot to the west. Would that also create an issue with irregular lot lines?
I don't think that it would make anything any more irregular.
Yeah, true. Yeah. yeah. Nice. I guess it would be better to have. I like straight lines because then you can see the meets and bounds, right?
Should we maybe zoom in on each lot by lot? Would that be helpful? Or Mark?
Well, I got one question that I kind of you brought up. What you're proposing is that if you can get a reduction in the rear yard setback, the building would still stay the same. You would just have clean up sort of the property lines.
It would give us a little bit of wiggle room as, the building may get a foot bigger during final design. Our plan is not to change the footprint of the building substantially. But right, if we were looking at a 20-foot rear yard setback, for example, the property line where it, has an angular jog at the end of the building at the north end. If we were looking at a 20-foot rear yard setback, right, I'm not sure as we could do that with 20 feet, but we can certainly look at reducing the number of segments that comprise that rear lot line. Yes.
I mean, I'd be supportive of that reduction in the rear yard setback as long as we get some indication that the building isn't growing, other than potential normal design build differentials, but not, because obviously if we didn't grant you that setback, you would have to stick to this design anyway because you're right on the setback.
So maybe there's some language that could go in there, or we could propose some language in which no building would, although we may have the extension or the 20-foot, we wouldn't construct building within it, but it allows for more
regular sight lines,
consistent sight lines or something like that.
Right. I mean, if you ask for a 20-foot rear yard setback, and let's just say that red line is 20 feet, you're not encroaching into it any further, so you're not getting the building any bigger.
Right.
I'm just not supportive of the building getting any bigger and getting any closer to the ravine and the steep slopes.
Can I ask a question? Why not? I mean, the regulations require you not to build in the steep slopes and not to build in the wetland or the habitat connector and not to build in the river corridor, but it doesn't say that those natural resources need additional protection beyond what's already provided in the regulations. Why not have the building be bigger?
Yeah.
If they wanted that flexibility, I mean, yeah.
But the level 1 hazard has to be on the conservation lot.
Right. But why does there need to be a 30-foot or a 20-foot buffer from the conservation lot?
It's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it is a conservation lot that's behind it. It's not.
Yeah, normally the purpose of setbacks is to set it back
interesting.
from a development on the lot, but there isn't going to be any development lot there. So I think the board is on board with that thinking. And so at the next phase of review, again, considering this standard of trying to square off the lots as much as possible, and we would be open to any setback waivers that would be needed that are up against the conservation lots.
Yeah, to avoid too much monumentation for all the corners.
Yeah. So if that's helpful for moving forward,
Yes,
great.
thank you.
Yes, that was 18. Okay. Moving on to item 19. This is under the site amenity requirement. So currently the proposal outlines that for site amenities, there'll be balconies installed, which will account for 50% of the required square footage for the site amenity, and then garden space to account for the other 50%. And so it looks like the plans might not account for, there might not be enough garden space to account for that 50%. So we just wanted to talk through your current proposal and making sure you understand the requirement here.
So there's over 1,000 square feet of site amenity space shown. However, my initial read of the civic space was that it had to be existing. In talking with staff, so long as the civic space is developed and ready at the time of occupancy of the multifamily building, we can use that as our other 50%. So 50% for the civic space, 50% for the balconies. And we may still have garden beds on the lot. It just wouldn't be a required site amenity element.
Yep, so that jumps to item 20. So it looks like you will be looking for a credit to, as far as your required amenity space to account for the civic space. Board, I don't have any concerns. Yep, so we would be open to that proposal. Yes. And then, yeah, the requirement here is just, which you have proposed already, a safe walkable connection to the civic space, and you're showing the crosswalk there. So that should be, meet that requirement. This next item is asking what your plan is for the swimming pool that's existing and how you anticipate incorporating the pool in the future plans.
We don't have any plans to change it. Not planning to change anything. It falls within the conservation lot. It would be incorporated into sort of a grandfathered use in the conservation lot. We're not proposing to change it, to change anything.
Sorry, can I ask staff, is that having a grandfathered pool in the conservation lot, is that? It's thinking through it in real time, so not sure. Yeah, how to.
I think that we need to do more research. I have not specifically dove into the history of that swimming pool, but it's my understanding that it's maybe not as clear that it was approved as it.
Understood. Okay.
One might think.
So we will do some more research on that and appreciate knowing right now your proposal is to not touch it. All right, and I think that's everything as far as staff comments go. Yep.
I think it was in here. We might have just jumped over it, but as far as including a portion of the required landscape budget for plantings in the habitat connector, is the board supportive of that?
So, sorry, say that again. So you're
oftentimes with the cost of the building,
Yep.
the landscape budget is quite high.
Mhm.
Would the board support, given that we have a nice landscaping plan around the site and the building, that if we have additional budget to use, required landscape budget to use, that we plant trees in the habitat connector, which would technically not be on lot 2, but be in the conservation lot?
Interesting. I don't think we've
What
considered that
areas
before.
are not, what areas in that conservation connector are not, that don't have trees currently? I guess it would be the pool area, right?
Refer to my prior comment on that. We're not proposing to change anything. At the east end of the parking lot. So again, there are some areas at the east end of the parking lot, south of the parking lot, where I think we have some areas that are not currently wooded. Again, because that 150 feet gets extended, doesn't necessarily follow a top of bank or some other type of feature that would be wooded currently. There may be an opportunity to do some plantings in there.
Okay. Yeah, so this again, kind of the habitat connector, we haven't seen a lot in that proposal. I think is novel for us. If I could, just for discussion and trying to provide some thoughts here, maybe pose a question to the board of when we have previously offered kind of flexibility in the landscaping budget. You might be aware if the site is adequately landscaped, we will consider the landscaping budget to go towards hardscape items that are kind of approved beyond what would typically be, and that can be accounting of the landscape budget. Board, do you have any initial reactions kind of as that as a comparison of like, would we prefer to see, you know, if the property is landscaped sufficiently, they have extra landscaping budget, would we prefer to see, you know, the investment in lot 2 and hardscapes, or this idea that they do more landscaping in a different lot on in the conservation area?
Yeah, I can't read off the connector block off the LDR, but it says we're supposed to encourage them in restoration of that connector block,
yeah.
right? So
It would be the connector block.
I guess I would encourage them to spend landscaping budget in that area to do that, right? Again, it'd be nice to have like an aerial overlay because there's quite a bit of trees and stuff in there. I don't know how much restoration is required,
right?
Other than maybe removing the pool, but
yeah, no, I think that's helpful. So I'll just add based on Charlie's comment. So if you're going to be proposing that in the habitat connector, just kind of making it clear what areas warrant that restoration and kind of how you came to that conclusion. But I take the point that, yeah, there's encouragement to restore those areas when it's warranted. Any other board members have thoughts on that? Okay, great. So yes, would consider that proposal, even though it's would be new for us, but sounds like a great thought. So appreciate it. And just making sure any proposal is focused on the areas that it makes sense to, that are in the need of it. Any other items we didn't talk about that you were hoping to discuss?
None.
Okay. Anything else from the board? All right. And with that, we will open up to public comment. I saw we have at least two folks in person. Anyone else online?
There's only one person online and they're calling in by phone, so I am going to unmute them if they want, just to identify that they would like to speak. Nope. Okay. So just the folks in person that raise their hands.
Great. So I think you, kind of heard the spiel about public comments previously. We are happy to answer questions, but really our focus is hearing any feedback that you might be able to provide that might inform a future decision. Similar to the last application we saw, this is sketch plan. So as you gleaned, there are a lot of details that we don't know yet, but so there'll be future opportunities as well. So all that being said, whoever wants to, we do ask that you come to the podium to talk. And when you get to the podium, there's a push button on the microphone. When you push that, the light will turn bright green. And we also ask that you just introduce yourself and say where you live.
It's actually on. All right. My name is Bob Davis, technically Robert. I live at 33 Harborview Road. Is one of the condominium units that is on the east side of the proposed development and all of the Larkin projects. And despite not really being listed as a existing condition, we are very much alive and well, a 33 unit condominium that was developed in the 80s by John Larkin Associates Larkin team. And so it's been there since the 80s. And I have no real prepared remarks, but I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm also the president of the association of three directors. So if it's helpful with any kind of communication, I can leave contact information with the staff. We're also managed by property associates in Williston, and they do a lot of the intercommunication for us. Like I say, I have no preferred statement. There's actually a couple residents here. Well, don't know if they want to speak or not. Maybe, because it's fresh in your mind, I can answer any questions as far as for Larkin Road, the Larkin Way, the actual road. It was basically a dirt road, more of a trail than a road up until fairly recently. And I think that, being like perhaps a year ago or so, I think it coincided with the redevelopment of the extended stay suites into apartments. It was roughly around that time period that road was paved. And in essence, it was a dirt road that was paved. As noted, no curbs, it's, I don't know if it's a particular right of ways, whatnot. It does see considerable traffic. Extended stay suites have their own services supplied by truck. There's also the people that stay as the residents, include significant semi trucks. So there's a lot of traffic. I think you need to, pay attention to the road because of the traffic. It's not just individual cars. There's significant semi truck traffic. It is the main primary access to the whole extended stay suites, just because of the divided Shelburne Road and everything. So, and then plus with the addition of the new apartments, there's additional traffic, new traffic. So, like I say, no really prepared remarks. My list of questions are going, as it seems like your folks are as well. Can I answer any other questions as far as Larkin Way specifically?
I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay, very good. And Larkin Way kind of acts as a divider of sorts from our property, which is bordering, and the general Larkin property. In between Larkin Way and our property line boundary is just scrub. So it's undeveloped, thus new project. The history, a quick history, which will help maybe understand some of the dynamics of the pool, is that, again, this was developed by John Larkin in the early 80s. Some of the Larkin family still own one of the residents. They're privately owned residents. There's 33 residents. Some more or less border Harborview Road, some back up to the project property line. Well, excuse me, the Larkin property. It looks like the conservation area set aside exists and basically borders all of our property line, as far as I can roughly tell. Yeah. The pool. So back in 82, 83, John Larkin kind of made a deal in setting up the association that the association would be granted a lease for 100 years of the pool. Looks like the pool footprint. That's something I haven't confirmed, but basically I believe it's the pool frontwood that's actually on the Larkin property. The borderline appears to be, my best guesstimate, perhaps 20 feet to the east of the pool. It is leased to us, like leased land. The association built it with a loan from Merchants Bank at the time. So we use the pool. We have use of it. We have a legal lease for 100 years that started in 82, 83. So we have approximately 60 years left. We like the pool, most folks. Anyway, so it is in what would be considered the conservation property allotment. Very small footprint to the pool, reasonable sized pool. Surrounding the pool on Larkin side and surrounding on our side is all our basically lawn. So the proposed conservation area would include our lawn. So it is landscaped. It's not undeveloped.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
How's the pool secured? Is there a fence around?
Yes. Yeah, we meet all legal requirements.
So your 150 buffer includes a fenced off pool for your habitat connector. I don't know. I think the habitat connector would say that it needs to be to the edge of a constructed structure, which I think fence counts as a structure, right, Marla?
No, it doesn't.
I mean, just imagine a 150-foot wide connecting block, right? And 80 of it is a fenced off pool. You're not achieving the 150-foot width.
I know that you all wanted to do some more research on the pool stuff anyway. Yeah. So maybe we could include that question. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the exact lines of the property, distances and whatnot, or even at this point, I could rough out what the square footage was at some point. Certainly happy to provide any further information. But it is deeded property, leased.
All right. Thank you. That's very helpful background. Any other
And,
comments you want to
and
make
so,
at this
yeah,
point?
so I just didn't know, we didn't know how that would relay as far as for setbacks and property, any kind of property dynamics. Certainly, again, as adjoining landowners, we would encourage you folks to really, and us, have a better understanding of what the other phases of development are, for the obvious reasons. Again, some of the residents may have other additional concerns, but very quickly, traffic, truck traffic, curious about the transition zone consideration. These are condominiums are owned. There are several that are rented, but basically it's lived in residency. You know, for the units, for our residents that are down there closest to the property line, they're certainly going to have questions about additional traffic, lighting, privacy, in the sense that, are these balconies, do they face west, which I would hope they can look towards the lake, or are they going to look down on our condominiums? Yeah. The river corridor is, if you envision, it's just basically kind of like a gully ravine. So if you haven't seen that lot, I'd certainly encourage you, and I'm happy to help you show you around the pool and our property, everything. Anyway, I guess that's about it, really.
Great.
What I'm hearing is you're inviting us for a pool party, sir.
You have to know the code.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah, it is locked, and obviously, again, and use of the pool was set up originally by John Larkin as to the association does decide who uses it. And if it's not clear, there's actually two associations adjoining property owners. Ours is called Harbor Heights, and that's 33 Harbor View. The other one is Baycrest, and they're off the, I think it's Baycrest Road, or whatever. Anyway, they're kind of wrapped behind, and in many ways, they're a little bit closer to the actual development. So,
great.
Pleased to have the conservation corridor look like it adjoins all of our property lines boundary.
Great.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you so much for your comments. Okay. And just make sure that you've signed in Outback.
I did.
So we have, great. Thank you. Yep, come on up. Again, introduce yourself, and if you could say where you live.
I live in the same condo association. And I am concerned because when you look at, you'll see how close that borderline is to the condo association, and those ours are 2-story condos, and you're proposing a 4, maybe 5-story building. So, the loss of privacy is a concern for me, and because you're going to have people like looking in their backyards, and just how unsettling that would be to move from like having woods and places to play to like having people like staring at your every move would be very concerning. Also, the river area, the gully area is not only used by the animals. It's been great to walk back there when my dog was alive. And just to see all of the different wildlife in the winter, you could see all the different tracks of the different animals that were going through there, and also the kids who were building forts and going up into the gully. And so that whole neighborhood, you'll see, if you go, you'll see the Quail Lane, Curie Lane, and Quail. I forgot the last part, Quail Road, maybe. Just that whole neighborhood uses that whole wooded area back there that abuts the north side of your blue triangle, blue shape there. And and there also is a path that goes from that neighborhood to the back of IDS of GE Healthcare now. And so that's a very well used area of the neighborhood. And I have seen deer crossing Harborview Road before, so there is wildlife that goes through there. Also, just wanted to point out some observations about Harborview Road itself. While it's pretty wide, there's the businesses, including the retirement communities that are on the south side. A lot of their employees park along the side of the road, as well as employees of some of the businesses that are closer to Shelburne Road. One of those businesses is a trucking company, so there are 18-wheeler trucks that come just to the lower part of the road. And then again, like Bob was saying, there are some people, because of the median that goes through Shelburne Road, a lot of the big trucks that might be staying at the Holiday Inn Suites area, they can't really pull that U-turn, so they go up Harborview Road, go down Larkin Way to go in the back way to park into that Howard Johnson's Quality Suites area. So those are all considerations of that area. And I would love to, if you ever do want to come and walk through that wooded area in the back, so you can get a sense of really of the ravine back there. I did make the sort of snide like comment about like that ravine is, I think first of all, it's really steep, and I don't know that I would want to put a building really close to that because of erosion issues, and also it just doesn't feel very safe to me, not being a builder or something, but it just but also just the privacy of that land seems very valuable to me. So yeah, that was, and I did have a question other than my observations. The question is, I was curious at the beginning, I wanted to get clarification on the 150-foot buffer. You were talking about that it doesn't need to be land that's owned by the developer. It can be public land. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so what I landed on, my understanding of that is, so that 150 feet, and maybe if we could bring up page 24 of the staff report, is the requirement for the habitat connector. And so that is a requirement for the land development regulations citywide. So the applicant can present this 150-foot width that expands beyond their property, because that would also apply to the neighboring property regardless, because it's just a requirement of the city to maintain that. So we're seeing that expand onto the adjacent property, and that's allowable because would apply to that property as well if there was for some reason a proposal to construct there, which I wouldn't imagine there would be, but it's just within, that accounting for that 150 feet.
So
Does
it would
that make sense?
include
Yep. Yep. So that whole ravine area, the river corridor. Yep.
That's
And
the
that's
point.
why
These are protected areas.
yeah, that's why they are being proposed as conserved, because the development regulations don't allow them to be developed.
but they do get to include that even though they don't own that property.
So they just have to represent that the land that would be available for a 150-foot habitat connector. So and again, the property adjacent would be held to that as well. So they're just representing the 150 feet that's available for the mapped habitat connector.
Okay.
Yes, of course. Any other comments you want to provide this evening?
That's all I can think of.
Excellent.
For the moment. Any questions for me?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for staying late. Yes. Did you have another comment?
Two quick questions. And for the record, this is Bob Davis again. The protected corridor that can also include landscape grassed mowed property.
Yeah, so I might have my understanding of it is that what's mapped is actually only 50 feet, but the land development regulations want to see that be 150 feet by not not permitting construction within that 150 feet. So we are looking at what is proposed there, and we can't really dictate what is already there, but we wouldn't approve anything. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah. We can't go backwards, but
yeah. I just want to make sure you understood that some of that is manicured lawn.
Yes, yeah, and hopefully I didn't misspeak on that.
Yeah, I think the general concept is that we have large habitat blocks, right? And that they want to provide a path for wildlife to transport between them. So that the city marked out areas that connector area is. In this location, the connector area wasn't 150 feet wide when they originally drew it. So when a lot becomes subdivided or developed, they have to try to identify a 150-foot width. And what they're doing, my understanding, and I think this is what you testify, is they picked the back of the condo buildings that are there and extended 150 feet from that, because in that zone that's not buildable because of the river corridor, and you can't build in the setback anyways.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Getting along with the pool doesn't somehow.
Well, yeah, that's something for your staff to look into.
Yeah. The only other question I really had was the basic question of last week. This application was put in by the John Larkin Inc. And apparently it's Snyder. Is that an actual change, or has that occurred in this initial sketch process, or just a technical mistake?
That was a technical mistake identifying who the applicant is.
Sounds good. We're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Okay.
It will be quick.
Yeah.
Again, Eva DeVant. I did. Another concern is just the increased population, and we already have concerns from some of our homeowners about their safety of since they've they changed some of the housing in that Howard Johnson's Quality Suites 2 apartments and stuff already. And just with that increased permanent residency, there have been people kind of walking through the condos, and especially some of the older people are a little concerned about their safety and how close in proximity the condos are to just sort of random people walking through, and just there is a sense of loss of safety there. So that would be, since there's going to be a lot more people a lot closer, that concern will heighten.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's all. Everyone who identified themselves for public comment, but going once, going twice. Okay. So that will conclude public comment. And again, we'll see this application again in the future with more information. Board, anything else before we end this matter? Yep.
Just one quick thing. I think that you guys should definitely look at the notion of wildlife corridor and whether a fenced-in pool, as Charlie brought up, is considered a blockage that can still be included to get that 150 feet, or if it's a pre-existing, if that nullifies it. But that's something I would like to hear more about.
So we met with staff in March to look at this to make sure that we were not on a stray path here. So we'll look to staff for direction on that.
Okay. Yep.
Great. Anything else? Okay, so sketch, we don't have to close or continue, but we will just see you next time with your full application. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that ends agenda item 7. We are on to 8, which is the minutes, which I believe are just the July 7th meeting. Let me just double check that. Yes, it's just the July 7th meeting. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the July 7th meeting as drafted.
So move with the one.
Yeah, I think Jody.
You have your one edit for the minutes.
For the minutes.
Yes, I do. On page 3, in agenda item 6, the 4th paragraph down. She loved the proposed walkway and also noted that the beach is a continuing issue.
Okay.
Okay. Great. So we will, with that change, I had a motion to approve from Ted, a second from Frank. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone abstaining? All right. The motion carries. And with that, any other business? Not hearing any. The meeting has ended at 9:46. Thanks, everyone.